You know, when we watch a movie about Rome and think, this is all just movie stuff? Well, but what if I told you that in a quiet corner of Europe, archaeologists were investigating an ancient Roman road and came across something completely unexpected? It wasn't a sword, a coin, or a mosaic. It was a footprint. Yes, a mark on the ground, but not from an animal or someone who walked by days earlier. It was a real, visible, perfectly shaped mark of a Roman sandal, the kind legionaries used, almost 2,000 years ago. Just imagine, a footprint from a soldier who might have been heading into battle or returning from a conquest, and left that trace behind like a frozen moment in time. Sounds like a movie, but that's exactly what happened. And when the experts saw that mark in the soil, they knew they were looking at something rare, because sometimes history doesn't come from books. It appears literally beneath our feet. Hold on. Before we go on, I need your help. YouTube only. Shows this video to more people if there's a lot of interaction. In other words, without your comment, this knowledge might stay buried and never reach those who need it. If this content makes sense to you, comment 1. If you disagree, comment 0 and tell me why. I want to see at least 100 comments here so that YouTube understands this topic needs to be spread. So leave your comment now and be part of this mission to uncover the secrets of ancient Rome. Now picture the scene. Archaeologists are working under the sun, using brushes and small spatulas, carefully trying to understand what lies beneath the stones of an ancient Roman road. Everything seemed normal, until someone stopped, looked closer, and noticed a strange depression in the ground. It wasn't natural. It wasn't a random hole. It was a rounded mark with deep grooves, exactly like the ones left by legionary sandals, the famous caligae. And it wasn't just one. There were others nearby, in a straight line, as if a man had actually passed through there marching. The mood at the site changed. That mark wasn't just a curiosity. It was the trace of a real person, a soldier who unknowingly left his presence behind, now speaking to us through the ground. A silent message from 2,000 years ago. The first question that comes to mind is, how can anyone be sure that the footprint actually belonged to a Roman soldier? After all, ground marks can be misleading. But archaeology isn't guesswork. It's about details. And that's where the experts began investigating. First, they analyzed the shape, wide at the front with circular marks in the center and on the sides. These matched the iron nails that Romans used on the soles of their military sandals, the caligae, to provide better grip. This wasn't a common sandal. It was military gear. On top of that, the spacing between the footprints helped calculate the height and even the weight of the person, and it matched the physical profile of a typical legionary, someone strong, used to wearing armor and marching long distances. One more curious detail, the position of the footprint showed he was moving, not standing still, most likely marching with other soldiers. So, it wasn't just a random mark. It was a trace of action, of military routine, clear evidence that this stretch of road had been walked by an authentic Roman warrior. At first glance, a simple footprint might not seem like a big deal, but when it comes to a Roman soldier, even what's on the ground has a story to tell. By the depth of the mark, it's clear he was carrying weight, and not just a little. A regular legionary walked around with iron armor, shield, sword, a backpack with supplies, and even construction tools. We're talking over 30 kilos, around 66 pounds on his back, and still they marched for miles each day, under sun, rain, and dust. Another important point is the way the foot was planted. It wasn't dragging or off balance, it was firm and rhythmic. That shows discipline, it shows training. This wasn't a stroll. It was part of an exhausting routine, lived by men who often didn't know if they would survive the next battle. This footprint reminds us of something powerful. These men weren't superheroes. They were people. They felt fear, pain, fatigue, but they kept going. Every mark in the dirt tells a story of effort, courage, and obedience. And all of that is there, engraved in the soil, for those who know how to look beyond the dust. The footprint alone would already be impressive, but the place where it was found makes everything even more fascinating. The archaeologists were digging up an ancient Roman road in what is now Germany, specifically near what used to be the empire's frontier. At the time, the region was full of forts, camps, and watchposts. It was a constant tension zone between the Romans and the Germanic tribes, who didn't easily accept domination. This path was part of what's known as the Limes. Germanicus, a kind of defensive line that separated the Roman world from the unknown. So think about this. If there was a footprint there, it's almost certain that soldier was on a mission. He might have been going to reinforce a post, deliver supplies, or just on a routine patrol that for him could mean life or death. And the most incredible part is realizing that the ground we now see as peaceful was once a scene of fear, shouted orders, and synchronized marching boots. It's as if the earth had stayed silent for centuries, until now. If this content is making sense to you so far, do me a favor, give me a sign. Comment 1 down below so I know you're with me on this journey. And remember, YouTube only spreads this knowledge if there's enough interaction. If you haven't commented yet, now's the time. I want to see this video filled with opinions so this topic can reach even more people. Think about it. A footprint, a simple mark on the ground, but what it represents goes far beyond pressed dirt. It's almost like a signature left behind by someone who lived, breathed, fought, and, like all of us, passed on. And by some twist of fate, that mark survived. We're not talking about a sculpture or a monument built to last. It was just someone's step, and yet it remained. That reminds us that every life, no matter how ordinary it may seem, leaves a trace. That everything done with purpose, with discipline, with presence, leaves a mark in some way. And in this case, the ground became a silent witness to a warrior's passing. We don't know his name, his face, his story, but we know he was there. And that's the magic. History doesn't just speak through emperors or famous battles. Sometimes, it whispers through a detail that nearly went unnoticed. A footprint, a trace of humanity lost in time. The footprint was already an extraordinary find, but as with any good archaeological excavation, the soil always holds more than one secret, and this time was no different. Around the mark, archaeologists found fragments of pottery, pieces of leather that were likely part of a uniform, and even small iron nails, exactly the kind used in the soles of military sandals. This helped reinforce the idea that this was a place of frequent troop movement. Another interesting detail was the presence of charcoal and ashes, which suggests campfires or some type of improvised military campsite. And you know what that might mean? That the soldier, the one who left the footprint, might have spent the night there. Maybe he was with his unit resting before continuing the march the next day. Or maybe they were waiting for orders from Rome. None of this is carved in stone, but the ground speaks. And the signs are all there. That's how history works. It's made of pieces, clues, small fragments that, when put together, reveal far more than we initially imagine. It might sound strange, but finding a footprint preserved for 2,000 years is nearly an archaeological miracle. After all, time erases almost everything. Rain, erosion, modern construction, everything contributes to hiding or destroying traces of the past. And a footprint in the dirt made by a single step is something extremely fragile. It's like trying to keep a footprint in sand for centuries. That's why when one of these survives time, researchers treat it like a true treasure. Most of the records we have from the Roman era come from texts, statues, coins. Rarely do we get direct contact with something so human, so simple, so real. The footprint wasn't made to last, it was left by accident. And because of that, it carries an authenticity that many official objects don't have. It wasn't planned, it wasn't sculpted, it just happened, and it stayed. And that's what makes it so powerful. It's a raw piece of the past that survived unfiltered, with no intention of being remembered. And maybe that's exactly why it speaks so loudly to those who stop to listen. You might be thinking, but what does a footprint change in the history of such a gigantic empire like Rome? And the answer is, maybe more than we imagine. Because the history we usually learn is told from above, by emperors, generals, great victories. But what built Rome, what kept it alive, were the feet that marched day after day along the roads that connected the Roman world. This footprint is living proof of that. It's a reminder that the Grand Rome only existed because thousands of anonymous men walked its ground. They fought for it, slept in the cold, marched through the mud, followed orders in silence. Beyond that, discoveries like this help scholars confirm military routes, understand how camps were organized, and even map out territories Rome occupied during moments that historical records don't clearly explain. In other words, a footprint can fit a missing piece in the great puzzle of antiquity, and that's the power of small details. Sometimes it's exactly the thing that almost goes unnoticed that completely changes how we see the past. The question that remains is, how many more footprints like this are still buried, waiting to be discovered? How many silent traces of the past still lie beneath our cities, roads, and fields? Rome may have fallen centuries ago, but its presence still pulses in the ground we walk on, and that makes us reflect. Time doesn't erase everything. It preserves, it hides, and sometimes it reveals, at just the right moment, to those who still care, to look closely. If this video made you think, brought you a new image of Rome, or awakened that old curiosity for the past, then do this. Hit the like button right now. That way, you help me keep bringing these forgotten stories to light. And before you leave, check out the video that's on your screen right now. It's about another hidden detail of the Roman Empire that could completely change the way you see the ancient world. Trust me, you don't want to miss this discovery. See you there.